So talking about Mercury in Gemini and the new moon in Taurus and some transits of the other planets in this update. So check it out. Okay, so we are here live talking about this transit of some of these transits that have just occurred. That would be the Mercury having moved into Gemini and also joined Mars and Rahu. You see the moon is also here today, but also Venus has shifted into Taurus. Quite a bit going on there, and we just had the new moon a couple days ago. I've been busy getting ready for a retreat, but we had the new moon actually on, it was on Sunday, was the actual what's called Amavasya. So a couple days ago, and so some big shifts here. Now it starts with this new moon in Taurus, so we're having this Taurus energy right now, which is about things that have to do with stabilizing and connecting with things that are solid, opposite the nature of Scorpio, because Scorpio is the sign that's opposite Taurus. So Scorpio is about a lot of emotional dynamism and dynamic, and Taurus is that stable ground beneath all of the emotional churning. So, for the next 30 days or so, we're going to be really sort of taking stock in those things and what is that solid ground beneath your feet and those values and those things that you value the most, and how those values and structures really support everything in your life. Because we tend to in some ways be a little ungrounded most of the time. And Taurus is where we need to connect with those stable, solid things that we've already learned, we already benefit from. This includes like our family, our close friends, and our daily habits and routines are very important. That includes our diet, our patterns of consumption and digestion. These things will be very important for the next 30 days, and you should notice how you interact with your environment through the senses. Taurus rules the face, the sensual organs, and again, that's where we have the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and how much maturity we have with those things often determines how much energy we have, how much value we give to others and also take for ourselves, so to speak. Those that value exchange is really important. Now, one of the deeper lessons of Taurus is also, has to do with contentment with what we have. You see, we're always ready to consume more, eat more, take more, and want to enjoy more. Like, I want to keep enjoying. One of the issues with Taurus is it can tend to be very, you might even say, greedy. Like, I want to keep enjoying and then getting more and more enjoyment. And this is why Taurus can get into like a lot of luxury and perhaps laziness. And these kinds of things are big issues right now that we have to be aware of, that kind of complacency. And especially in a world where we're so much about consumerism and mass consumption, we can get very stuck in the form of things. But again, the deeper lesson doesn't have to do with the consumption. It has to do with what's called santosha, or contentment. And santosha, or contentment, is the spiritual quality and the yogic attribute, the yogic quality that is connected the most to the sign of Taurus. You know, my guru Amma says you don't need to eat a bag of sugar in order to enjoy the taste. You can enjoy. You just don't need to indulge. You just don't need to, again, eat the whole bag. You can have the brownie, the fudge cake, the thing. You can enjoy the taste, the taste. But you don't need to eat a pound of it. You can enjoy some of the, chips, a couple chips, but you don't need to eat the whole bag. When we do that, there's a gluttony. And we're gluttons in many ways. We're a glutton for all kinds of things because we're kind of greedy and miserly, particularly around the good things. We're not a glutton. Some people say they're a glutton for punishment. Most people aren't. Most people are a glutton for dishing out punishment on some level. As soon as something gets hard for us, we want to throw it off. Ugh, no, I don't want that. You made me unhappy. Now I'm going to make you unhappy. You hurt me. Now I'm going to hurt you. And again, we're certainly not a glutton for that. We're not a glutton for being responsible for our own state of mind or whatever. But we're a glutton for enjoyment and pleasure and affirmation and pay attention to me and make me feel good and pamper me and all that. And so we have to be careful with that quality in Taurus of wanting to keep all the good stuff for ourselves and keep growing it and growing it. Again, it's not because we're bad people and there's something inherently spiritually right that feels good to our spirit when we're happy. And we're supposed to be happy. We're not supposed to gravitate to things that feel bad and that are hurtful. Again, on a spiritual level, we turn away from those things because inherently they're dangerous and we could die. And this is why we have a natural avoidance of that emotion. But that's just emotional. Again, this is why we're not just our emotions. And when we have discrimination, we check our emotions, we check our thoughts, we have presence, and we identify, okay, is that thing that I'm avoiding real, or is that just some habit of the ego? We also have discrimination of the other thing I said, which is that thing I'm ready to indulge in. Do I really need that? Is that really the best thing for me? Is that really even congruent with my own values? You see, and so, like, for example, in the quality of indulgence, which we're all kind of guilty of, we don't need to eat the whole bag, but it's hard to not eat the whole bag of chips that you like, or eat the whole half pint of ice cream. You don't need to eat the whole thing, but it's hard to stop because it tastes good and you want to keep enjoying it. There's something spiritually rewarding about enjoying life. We're meant to enjoy it. It's not easy stuff, but it's a good discipline to try to take a little bit and not take too much. I use my guru Amachi a lot for a lot of these examples of almost all spiritual lessons because I've been around her enough and watched her and observed her and learn. At least I learn it intellectually. I don't always practice it. In fact, I rarely practice it very well. I'm no better than anybody else. When I talk about these things, they're not lectures. They're also recognition of my own faults. But you'll see what happens when someone brings Amma some sweets. And it happens a lot because Amma sits in a chair and hugs people for like 15 hours straight. She doesn't even get up and go to the bathroom. And people have seen Amma hasn't gotten anything to eat. She's been sitting there. She hasn't gone to the bathroom. She hasn't eaten anything. So people come up and when they'll get their darshan or their hug, they'll bring Amma something. They'll bring her some food. Often it's something sweet, something they know Amma likes. You know what Amma does? She practices what she preaches. She'll take a little piece of it and taste it. I love that. Thank you. And then you know what she does? She gives the rest of it away. It's called prasad. And then all of a sudden, you'll see everybody is giving pieces of it away, because then it's called prasad, which means the food that God has blessed, or things like that. And yes, because Alma's diabetic, that she doesn't eat sugar, but people also bring sweet things that don't have sugar as well. But even if someone brings stuff that has sugar in it, Alma will take some of it, because Alma's not going to refuse. If somebody doesn't know and they bring her something that has sugar, she'll also take a little piece of it, because she doesn't want to reject what was offered. And so, again, this is why you get around a living master like that, a living guru who is an embodiment of this divine wisdom. It's not just a bunch of thoughts and ideas. You know, I've talked about this a lot, where people have a lot of ideas, especially in the West, that, you know, I don't need a guru. The guru is within. We're all guru. You know, all that's true. And great gurus also say that yes, the guru is within. But how many of us actually follow the guru within? How many of us actually follow the things that we know are correct? We don't get around a guru because we're worshiping them. We get around to watch them. We watch them because they are embodying the practice, not just talking about it. We all know it's right, we just don't do it. So you get around a being who is doing it. They're living the Dharma. They're an embodiment of Dharma, of truth. All the time. It's not like, oh, you know what, I'm taking a break from Dharma right now. I'm going to scream and act like a lunatic. You know, that's what we do. We do one thing right once in a while, and we never shut up about it. Once in a while, we can sacrifice and have maturity, and we got to blab it to the whole world. For us, it's an aberration that we ever do something right in that sense. You know, we're always so triggered and indulgent and extreme and lazy. And again, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm talking about myself. These beings, you know, and Amma is a great example, one of the best I've ever seen, never departs from Dharma, never loses it. Never says, you know what, the heck with it. I'm just going to gobble this up and eat it all myself because I'm hungry. Or I'm tired, so now that I'm tired, I've been hugging people a long time, now I'm going to get grouchy and start getting cranky with everybody. And no, never. Doesn't matter what happened. The state is the same. Now, that's a very high state, but that's the reason people go to see gurus. This is why. It's not to worship them, again, because we don't understand these things in the West. We think something like that means that we're subservient and that we're, being mentally enslaved. It's not that at all. We're observing and watching. All right. So I'm also talking about this because of a few of the other, transits that have happened, and to notice that quality of divine contentment that is always in the presence of a master like that. One of the names for Amma, there's a great bhajan. Some people here who know of Amma, one called Jinki Karuna He Appa, Jinki Anka Mehe Pya. It's one of these powerful Amma or Divine Mother bhajans. And there's one great part of it where they go, Ji Santoshima, Santoshima, Jinki Karuna He Appa, Jinki Anka Mehe Pya. It's this really powerful, like Kali, the goddess Kali bhajan, where it's called this rhythm, this chanda that's like boom, 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 like pounding you, right? This kind of waking up the Shakti in you, the power. And they sing this Santoshima, like she's Santoshima, the mother who's always content. Always content. Give me a chocolate, give me a this, give me nothing. I'm content. If you bring something, I can take a little piece of the brownie, and I can enjoy it and give the rest away. I'm content whether I get something, get nothing, have this much, have that much. It doesn't matter. Always in a state of contentment. Think about what contentment is as opposed to happiness and bliss. Oh, I'm so happy, I'm so happy. We totally mistake the two. I'm so happy, I'm so happy. Okay, but are you content? Contentment is different. Contentment is about peace. Peace. Peace is very different than happiness. Because happiness is one of the extremes, opposite of sadness. When you're in opposites, when you're in duality, happiness is just gathering momentum for sadness. Good is gathering momentum for bad. But when there's santosha, there's peace and contentment with whatever is. So that's the cycle we're in right now. And again, we saw the sun and moon came together in Taurus a couple days on the 3rd. The moon is exalted in Taurus because it stabilizes the moon. And again, part of it on the emotional level, psychological level, when moon is in Taurus, we gravitate toward things that feel good and make us happy. That's on the surface. And that naturally stabilizes the mind because we gravitate toward what makes us happy, rather than it's debilitated in Scorpio where we're always unhappy and we're always churning and transforming and never stable, never solid. It's hard to get solid and stable. I'm not saying never, but I mean that's the hard part. Scorpio has to transform all that drama into devotion and ride those big waves. Taurus is already the stable ground. But again, it can create attachment, especially attachment to happiness. That's why I'm talking about it like this. Because even though the moon is exalted there and it's and there's a strong desire to enjoy and experience, we need to go deeper than happiness being the goal. The goal is not happiness and pleasure and enjoyment. It's santosha. Contentment. Contentment, sir. 100% contentment. I see it in your eyes. You are content, sir. And that's when it's stable. Stability. When the mind stops and the emotions stop longing for happiness, longing, this romantic longing we have in our mind. That's what the moon is. The moon is longing. It says the moon is lustful. This is why, because lustful means that it's longing for something. And it's not longing to be sad, it's longing to merge. But it's longing to merge with the highest self, with the highest connection. And that highest connection is not in the duality of happiness and sadness. It's in the state of contentment and merging with the one, not choosing one over the other. Ultimately, contentment includes sadness and happiness. I'm content whether I'm happy or sad. Again, and you see this with Amma. You know what Amma does is she goes into the most ravaged communities. You know, back especially when they had all the tidal waves and stuff in India. She went and sat with the victims of people who had lost everything. Everything. And these people who had, their whole family was gone. And Amma would sit there and cry with them. And whether she was happy or sad, it wasn't about her happiness or her sadness. It was about her contentment regardless of what is going on. So again, this ability to abide in whatever is, that's the divine quality of contentment in happiness or sadness. Again, this is a deep yogic principle. Pleasure or pain. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. It's in every text. Attractions and aversions, desires, wanting this, rejecting that. This is what generates all the emotion. And Taurus is where contentment comes more easily as well. So ponder that this next 30 days of your attraction toward what makes you happy and makes you feel good, and especially your comfort zone around these things. Because Taurus is also our comfort zone around these things. Because we're comfortable with something, I'm comfortable with this, it makes me happy. Okay, now there you go. But then something comes to shake it up or change it or transform you, and you'll cling to it. No, this is the thing. This is where I'm safe. This is where I'm happy. Again, you're happy with this thing you're used to, but are you content with losing it? Because you got to be content with losing it all in order to really grow. So that's why the Scorpio is the opposite of Taurus, because Scorpio is always questioning, challenging, changing, transforming, destroying some idea, needing things to be different. That's how Taurus and Scorpio work. That's the dialogue between Taurus and Scorpio. So sit with that right now and notice how this is showing up in your life. And of course, based on whichever house Taurus falls in from your sidereal ascendant, that's going to be the focal point. So if your rising sign, your sidereal rising sign is Pisces, it's going to be the third house. So these themes revolve around third house issues in your life. Like, for instance, I'm Gemini, so it's 12th house themes, right? So ponder this transformation of this desire for happiness to a contentment with what is. Very powerful message. And again, that's where the moon is exalted. And it's in the nakshatra of Rohini. And Rohini is Lord Prajapati, or Lord Brahma, the creator. And Brahma, as the creator, created everything from nothing. Now, that includes creating that includes creating himself as a form, and all the forms. And so this concept of creativity is built into the concept of beauty and happiness and things that we're looking to do. This is why Taurus is one of the most creative signs. It wants to create beauty and order and harmony, again, around us on a very material level. But again, in the highest spiritual level, Lord Brahma is the source of creation, of creativity, which means creating yourself. This is why Brahma had to create himself in form in order to then populate the universe with beings. And so Rohini was his most beautiful daughter, which was also created by himself. So again, it's up to you to create yourself. You are the creator and the creation. And this whole creation myth story, in the Vedic sense, it originates here in Rohini, the creation myth of the one becoming many. You see the same creation myth in Christianity where Jesus, we say, I and my Father are one. Well, how can I and my Father be one? You're either you or your Father. Again, authentic spirituality challenges us. It's not simple. It's not rational, logical in this regard. It is when you understand how spirit is undifferentiated on the causal level, and then it separates based on our karma and filters down through elements and gunas and karma, but it's the same source, right? So you not only create externally, you are a creation, and if you're going to be something higher than just the way you see yourself now, you have to create it. You as the creative principle. Again, this is why also the idea that why do I need a guru? I can just do it myself is very natural to us instinctively, because we also instinctively know that eventually I have to create myself. I'm the creator. I have to create everything, because everything meaningful in my life that has changed, that I have grown through, I created. So we understand this as well. But again, that's why I also bring in the quality of why we have gurus. The guru is not a substitute for our own creative principle. First of all, the guru is usually smarter than us on some level, and they teach us something that we didn't know. But the guru is mainly a living embodiment of the teachings. They're walking the talk, and we never see that. And when you get around a great guru, you notice the difference. You notice the difference between the way they act and the way you act, and the way they act and the way everyone else acts. So you see the teachings in practice, and that inspires you, and you remember, like I remember. I can pull up stories of Alma in almost anything meaningful that I talk about, because I've seen her so much. I've seen her embody all of this power of the planets before. And in fact, the reason astrology went very profound in my heart is because I was watching an embodiment of all the spiritual astrological wisdom right in front of me as I was learning it. And again, this is how a guru, a living embodiment of truth, teaches us. They don't have to teach us. Amma didn't have to teach me astrology directly and show me planet signs and houses. Those are just details. What a great Sadguru teaches you is the source of the wisdom, because all great wisdom comes from the same source. This is why all wisdom traditions say the same thing. They say them in different ways. But what a great guru teaches you, especially if you're surrendered and open and noticing what the master is doing, is they're showing you the Dharma in action playing out in front of you. I would have never understood what that divine courage is of Mars without watching Amma and seeing she's totally fearless. I would never know what the divine Saturn really looks like. I've only seen it once, and it was with her, sitting there making sure to hug every person. I don't care how long we're here. I'm not stopping. You're tired? I've been the one sitting here for 15 hours. I'm not tired. That's Saturn. I'm going to keep going till it's done. I'm going to be thorough. I've never seen that before. These divine energies they culminate in a Sadguru like that, who is a master. They've mastered it. And they're the most humble at the same time. So this quality between Rohini, ruled by Lord Brahma, the creator, which is the creator creating himself so he could create the universe of form, is the same thing that you do on the causal level. That's what you have to do. You have to take the teachings and create with them, not just believe in them blindly. And again, there are people who do believe in their gurus blindly and stuff, and they just believe things blindly, of course. People do all kinds of stuff. That doesn't mean that's what the guru says. That's not because that's what we're supposed to do, or that's not because that's what the teachings actually mean. But it's better to blindly believe in a good teacher first, so at least you have a good reference, than to be blindly believing in something else. And eventually a great teacher takes off your blinders so that you then start practicing, and they do it very intentionally. They will destroy your illusions, because great teachers and great gurus are very hard to be around. Those of us who have spent a lot of time around Amma, for example, or any great spiritual teacher, knows that authentic teachers are hard to be around. They don't coddle you. They don't baby you. They baby you a little bit, but then they push you. They say, come on, grow up. Stop acting like you don't know what you're doing or who you are. Be responsible for what you're doing. You know what the truth is. Stop being a baby about it. They're masters of tough love and soft love. Any range you can imagine, a real master is awakened to, and they know just what you need when you need it. And you're the same way with your life. You've just forgotten that you have the power. So again, these are very important things right now in this Taurus time of creativity, of connection to beauty, happiness, joy, and the joy of being a creative entity, and also that structure, stability that leads to contentment with whatever it is. And the contentment comes from knowing that you're not defined by anything external, and that you can handle and manage any situation. When it's time for joy, there's joy. It comes up and then it recedes. Then the next moment it's time for discipline and focus. Then that comes up and you deal with that. Then the next moment there's some awful thing happening. Well, you just meet that. No aversions, no avoiding anything, no drama happening over it. It's just one moment after the next showing up because you're totally content with whatever it is. You want to punch me in the face? Okay. I'm going to try to avoid it, but if it happens, hey. So that's a very high state, and we aspire to that. At the very least, we can manage our daily routines and our moments and things like that. So talk about a few other things. This was a couple days ago. Now we're here on the 4th, and you see Venus has just poked her head into Taurus. That's why I'm talking about this quality quite a lot. It was, a few hours ago. We're here now. We're at 4 o'clock. So Venus is about 1 degree here, almost 1 degree of Taurus. So all these Taurus themes are very big now because Venus is the ruler. But we also have Mercury has now moved into Gemini. It's getting closer to this Mars-Rahu, right? So there's a lot of energy now in the Gemini end of the axis. Ketu, Saturn are still very close. And this, especially Mercury in Gemini now, is quite a strong placement. In that, Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. So a lot of this sort of intense Gemini energy that's been happening with Mars, Rahu both there, a lot of the battles and fights, of course they'll continue, but one of the things to really understand is that Mercury there as the ruler is bringing a high capacity for a lot of discrimination now, because Mercury is the planet of discrimination. One second. And Gemini is that sign where we're trying to manage and navigate all of these different balls that we might have in the air right now, and all of the intensity, especially the intensity of this Saturn Ketu, which has been bringing up a lot of our deeper fears and worries and stress, especially around our teachings and our gurus and what we believe. Again, because it's Ketu, Saturn, and Sagittarius. Very great, it's a great time to rethink what inspires you and whatnot, but it's also, again, our teachings and our beliefs have been very challenged, especially if they're not very strong. It's been a time to maybe fall prey to bad teachings the last couple months, especially since Ketu and Saturn have been joined since the end of March. You're really noticing how authentic and correct your teachings are. And whether or not it's just a lot of, BS or people just asking you to believe things and not proving them and not showing up with the facts. Again, this is really going to be taking a hit, as I've been saying for months, especially when Rahu went into Gemini at the end of March. That really started this year and a half of where we're going to be seeing the facts. We're going to be seeing the truth, the data, the proof shows up. The real communication shows up, where we see the facts. They get presented to us. And those who aren't living in the truth, those who are just putting out a lot of hyperbolic, oh no, trust me, and full of these fanatical opinions and views that aren't backed up by proper teaching, by, again, good data and research, they're going to be having quite a hard time with, especially now that Mercury has gone into Gemini for a few weeks at least, for a while. There's going to be some real disclosures, more and more. It's harder to maintain all of that fanaticism. And again, people who are just, driven by sort of proselytizing some views that are not correct, those things are going to be challenged a lot more now. And they should be. And challenged, mainly because Mars is also here. So it can be, challenging to keep those things afloat. But also Mercury is there who's like, yeah, well, it's time for you, this person who is just full of your opinions and boastful, ideologies and fanatical beliefs that don't have any fact behind them. It's time for you to adjust, to change your fanatical views. And people who don't want to do that, they're going to have a hard time. And we see this in a lot of different areas, right? We see this all over the place because the truth is going to be showing up. Now, again, notice this in your life. Notice this, I'm reminded of an example that just happened in the political realm. And again, whether you're a supporter of, let's say, Trump or not, it was a very obvious thing before he went to England. Again, people can choose There are people who choose to just go, la, na, 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 I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to see it, no matter what. And again, they can keep doing that if they want, but he actually said something very obvious that everyone's heard him say, something about this, was it Meghan Markle? Is that her name? The princess of something. She's nasty, right? Is what he said. And then later he said, I never said that. That's fake news. And then they run the tape over and over again of him saying it. And then he doubles and triples down on saying, I never said it, even when everyone just heard him say it. Now, again, to the people who are just impervious to the fact that he lies about things big and small, there's nothing you're going to do to change people like that. But again, to think that these things have no effect is also not true. There's a cumulative effect of seeing things like this over and over and over again that starts to wear people out. And the cumulative effect of seeing people who aren't telling the truth or who are jacked up on some weird ego trip, power trip about what they believe and their teachings, Mercury in Gemini is the time when we start to notice it. And not just notice it, but actually the discrimination is there where we say to ourselves, you know what, this guy, this just ain't right. You know what, I've heard him say this stuff and I've looked at it, I'm not really sure, but what about all this really truthful information that's out there? You know, that's authentic. Again, Mercury in Gemini is bringing discrimination, right? So it's a great time for that in your life. Notice that in your life. Notice things that you've been sort of confused about maybe and you're not really sure. And notice if lately, for example, you haven't seen some really good information show up that helps to clarify what you weren't sure about, what you were maybe believing in or weren't so clear about. That's a big part of Mercury and Gemini, especially join Mars and Rahu, where there's still quite a bit of confusion about information and quite a bit of, propaganda and trying to misuse information to distort, again, the whole idea that Trump is a good example to talk about with these things because he's so blatant and he's so obvious. And, you could see him using sort of propaganda all the time. He'll just say anything. It doesn't have to be true. In fact, it's clear that the truth is not his yardstick, which again is scary considering how much power he has. But he's not saying things based on whether or not they're factually correct. And again, it's much different than other politicians who would never come out and just basically lie about something so trivial. First of all, to even say anything like that, but then to lie about it, double down, triple down. And we're not even shocked. We're so used to it at this point. We're not even shocked. It's like, oh yeah, he did that. But again, to those who have been maybe complicit because they like him or something, these kinds of things start to wear, particularly when Mercury is in Gemini and we're like, I'm seeing something that is not, that really just starts to wear on us. And so, again, for the next couple weeks, especially as Mercury makes its way through this sign of Gemini and over Mars and over Rahu, notice more of these disclosures. I have a feeling, just to be political for a second, that there's going to be, and in fact, even notice the last few days and whatnot, notice how the rhetoric for the impeachment has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. How it started to be less, it's getting more and more, the momentum is driving more and more. And I think especially as we get to this eclipse that's coming around, there's going to be formal impeachment at some point. It's unavoidable. It has to be. But you're seeing these Congress people or whatnot, if we're just talking about this issue, it's harder and harder to keep saying that he's obviously not telling the truth, and all these people obviously didn't tell the truth, and lying, and on, but we're not going to do anything about it. Again, the people are going to start to demand, because this is one of the things we're looking at is people like the public, let's say in the U.S. The public is starting to get more and more restless with this crap. Like, what are you talking about? At least you were hired to do a job. At least you need to look into this. Open up hearings, because again, Mercury's in Gemini saying, this is too much, man. It's not where our patience isn't unlimited. And the voice of the people, Mercury and Gemini is like noticing, right? So again, some of this is just we can see this in our world, in the external world, but also in your private world as well. You can notice how you're seeing things show up in a way that's compelling you to follow the facts, right? And, so there are other things here, but if people had a couple questions, especially about some of these things that I've mentioned, you can ask them if you want. I'll take a couple questions here, especially about this stuff, not about your chart, because I'm not looking at your chart and I'm not going to do readings. I know I have to say these things, but, if especially questions about any of the things I said, that would be fine. I'll try to answer them. So I hesitated to bring up the politics a little bit because I'd love it to not turn into that. But again, it's so we can see it. So how to stay content when teachers test our core. Well, it's kind of setting up a again, contentment is not conditioned on anything. The question would be how to stay happy. That would be more, because you're looking for the teacher to make you happy. If you're content whether the teacher, I don't even know what testing your core means. They're saying things that you disagree with or whatever. That has nothing to do with contentment. That has to do with happiness. And that expectation that a teacher is going to make you happy. And again, you also want to check and make sure that the teacher, are they testing your core because they're telling you what you don't want to hear, or are they testing your core because they're lying or doing something that's violating what a teacher should do? These are the questions. Again, they're complex. Because a teacher, again, one of the things to look at if it's a teacher is to notice, is what they're saying true? Or is what they're saying just challenging? Because good teachers will challenge you. They're not going to comfort you. They'll speak the truth. So is the truth they're speaking challenging to you because you want to be happy and they're telling you something you don't? Is that what's challenging your core? If that's so, and it's disturbing your, quote, what you're calling contentment, again, it's too general. Now it says feels like violation. I don't really know what we're talking about. So again, this is one of the things about it. I'm going to be speaking on a general term because it's general here. So it's too on the surface. If now it feels like violation, I don't know what we're talking about. So again, I'm speaking though, even whatever you're saying feels like violation. Again, all of these words only resonate as deeply as you've embodied them. I can't bring what contentment actually is and put it in your brain to know that contentment is actually not conditioned on the world. I can give you the example that I used. In the yogic sense, contentment is not conditioned on anything that has to do with the world. Whatever it even is that feels like a violation, I don't really know. You also said feels like a violation. You're talking about your emotions. Again, everything is feeling. You're in emotions, which are attraction, aversion. Again, so I don't really, this is what I would, this is how it works. Contentment is deeper than emotion. It's a state of consciousness, right? And when you've gone to a very deep state of meditation, then you're deeper than the emotions and the triggering that feels like a violation or that we don't like, or I'm going to avoid this, or you said that, now I'm triggered and upset and it feels like a violation, so now I'm not content. Again, that's because there was an attachment to something and a desire to have it be something else. And again, what happens is we attach things to people, and then when they disappoint us, we're not content anymore. But again, the problem wasn't that now they did something. It was we were attached to some outcome that we wanted them to give us. And when they didn't, we're no longer content. So again, on a spiritual level, the guru, the reason a guru is a master is because they don't want anything from you. There's nothing you can give them. I mean, think about this for a second. There's nothing you can give them that they want. Think about that in your life. we want everything from people. We want them to treat us nice. We want them, again, you might say, well, I don't want anything from people. And it's preposterous. We have nothing but demands. The first demand is we want people to be nice to us and treat us the way we should be treated and all that. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying a guru on the state of deep contentment wants nothing from us. Again, I've got to see this for 20 years almost straight of a being who wants nothing from anyone. You give them something, they take it for your benefit because you feel good giving something to them. They don't want anything from you. And only in a state where we don't want anything can we actually give love. This is why the most divine love usually that humans share is the parent for the child, because the parent doesn't want anything from the child. They just want to give love. And this is one ways that really connects us to our heart in a very deep way. But actually, any time that you're connected to the heart on the deepest level where you don't want anything in return, that's very close to your state of true bliss and source. But again, it doesn't mean that other kinds of love or interaction are also less worthy. They're not. They all teach us different things. But it's from that very deep place that contentment must abide. This is why the parent is content. Again, one of the deepest states that we get naturally, or even, let's say, not even just with children, but even caring for our pets. We just love our pets, and there's a state of contentment and beauty and resonance and a feeling of stability and completion that comes just because we get to give love to a being. And we have a great feeling of contentment and joy, and we want nothing from that. So think about that. Think about even a state of contentment that's different than maybe someone experiences from a person in their life. Think about like with a pet. Like your pet can even bite you sometimes or poop on the floor or do other kinds of things that if a person did it, you would feel totally disrespected and all that. But the animal that you love does it, and you don't feel any anger. It doesn't upset you. It might upset you a little bit, but just because you got to clean it up, but it's not the same kind of charge. So I try to give examples of these things, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. But it's a good question, Philip, and I appreciate you asking it. Daphne says, will it ever get better for the whole world to be at peace? I would say probably no, because the nature of the world is to not be at peace. It's never been at peace because it's filled with people who aren't at peace. So the world, especially in the Kali Yuga, we live in a certain era, is meant to be unpeaceful and chaotic. The reason is because so we can find our inner peace. It's very easy to say that the world is wrong and all the craziness and be attached to all that as the reason why we can't concentrate and the reason we're so unhappy, but it's just not true. The chaos and craziness of the world is to provide a contrast for us, for our stillness. Because when there's stillness outside, there's not a lot of friction inside because everything is easy. And it's a blessing to be born at a difficult time and in difficult circumstances. The soul takes on a very heroic course when it's born into difficult circumstances because then it grows very rapidly and very quickly. And it's said that in the Kali Yuga, in the Yuga that we live in, our karma is accelerated and our spiritual growth is accelerated like 5 times, or I don't remember, I think it was 5 times. Or I don't know. I don't actually remember what it is. It's some exponential growth. I just realized I'm talking about Indian thinking, so it might be 200,000 times. They always exaggerate in the Kali Yuga, right? Because we're born in a difficult time, it's more difficult to stay peaceful. So our spiritual progress is much more rapid. In times when everything is peaceful, it's much easier to just abide in peacefulness, and that can also make us lazy. And this is also the difference between the asuras, which are the demons, and the devas, which are the angelic beings. So again, as all great beings say, forget about the world. The world is what it is. And change yourself, because you have power over every moment. And that's all you have power over, and that's all you'll ever have power over is each moment. And to be present with it. And imbibe the teachings. This is why you have these great yoga teachings and all of these meditations and techniques that bring you into the present moment and that introduce consciousness into the into the equation. I'm just looking here at a couple. Rahu is said to be chameleon planet and a planet placed with, in a situation, 3 or 4 planets conjunct. How do we look at it? You look at it like you just said. Again, you look at it, you interpret all of that. So again, you said it correctly. You've gathered the details that say Rahu is said to be a chameleon planet, yes, and becomes like the planet it's placed with, yes. In a situation where it's with 3 or 4 planets, how do we look at it? You look at it that way. And then you have to interpret it. So again, gathering the detail on the surface is just the surface. That's why you have to study what exactly all that is. So in this case, like Rahu is in Gemini, there's that. It's with Mars, there's that. It's with the Moon, it's that. It's with Mercury, it's that. So what does that mean? How to interpret it? You interpret it. How do you look at it? You say all of that stuff. If I were to sit here to do it. And I'm kind of doing it. I kind of just did it. But Ketu is with Saturn in Sagittarius. Again, I just kind of did it. How do we look at it? You have to interpret every little thing. The thing that students get involved in and what you're doing is you're trying to merge it all together. This is the biggest mistake usually that students get into at first. They're trying to say, what is the one sentence I say that interprets all of that? How do I look at it? It. Well, it is about 50 different things. And you have to filter them correctly. First, you have to know what they are. Then you filter them correctly. Then you say them correctly in the right order, in the right proportion. And no, it's not that easy. But that's how you do it. So the first thing is great that you've learned the important framework. Again, knowledge is it goes from a very broad to a very general. First, you got to get people to understand what you just said, which is great. Rahu is said to be a chameleon planet and becomes like the planets it's placed with. Great. I say that all the time. Sounds like you heard it from me, by the way. Maybe you haven't, maybe you have, but I say that all the time. In a situation like 3 or 4 planets, how do we look at it? Well, again, you take that structure that you understand, and then you filter all of what that implies, because the planets are indicators, they have elements, gunas, they rule houses, signs. Each one of them, they're in their own sign, they're with each other. All of that, you have to learn how to interpret it. So, and so, there's other stuff about just using Trump as an example. Says protests are fake, even everybody sees it. It's ongoing, right? It's ongoing. So, with him especially. And so, one of the very things that we could, that we can say is that the overall, sort of premise of this is what I said before, to kind of encapsulate it, is that there's a lot of energy right now in this whole Gemini, Mars, Rahu kind of explosion of information and frustration around it, and what do we do? Do we impeach? And all the kind of drama. And Mercury there, because he's the ruler, is really giving us an opportunity to have the discrimination. Like for instance, just to say a little bit more about the political part, we had that one Republican Congressman, Amash, last week came out. He's been like on fire for, when we say impeachment, it doesn't mean you pass articles of impeachment. That's not what happens. You have hearings. And absolutely the Congress should do this. They should have opened articles of impeachment months ago. They don't do it because Nancy Pelosi's being political about it. But there's a point where you don't play politics with what's right, because you're setting a precedent. All kinds of reasons that I'm not going to necessarily get into, but Elizabeth Warren had it right off the bat. As soon as we saw what was really in that Mueller report and the level of just chicanery and dishonor, especially around obstructing justice, that needs to be looked into. That's the oversight. That is the oversight job of Congress. Now, you don't try to impeach him. Again, people don't even understand what this is. This is also a time to be educated about it. Again, that's all Mercury as well. People need to get out and start talking about what the options are. The options aren't you impeach him. The options are you open a formal investigation. What that does is take all of it out of this voluntary system right now, because now you also have them obstructing justice by in an unprecedented way, not cooperating with subpoenas or with requests to testify before the Congress. That's a violation. That was one of the articles of impeachment on Richard Nixon. That was an article of impeachment, was not cooperating with Congress and their oversight. That in itself is an article that needs to be investigated, and it's almost proven. He already has come out and said, don't cooperate. Nixon was impeached for that. I mean, we've gone so far over the cliff on the issue of whether or not we should hold hearings or not, for God's sake. But what hearings will do was take the courts out of it. No more courts taking it to court for all this stuff. And every one of those people would have to come. You would have McGahn, Mueller, everybody would need to come and say this stuff in front of the public. That's the difference. And again, this whole thing about, well, the Mueller report, this or that. Again, I said about a month ago, wait and see what's going to happen. It's going to happen. They're going to open them, and these people are going to be hauled before the cameras and the public to have to say these things. McGahn is going to have to sit there and say, yeah, I was told to fire the special prosecutor, and I didn't. Why? Because it's illegal. So you're saying the president told you to do something illegal? Yes. Is that why you refused? Yes. Would you consider that obstruction of justice? Well, if I'd have done it, it would have been. Again, so these things are going to get said publicly at some point. They will. I'm making the prediction. And right now, with Mercury going through Gemini, we're seeing these things getting really talked about and sort of contended with, if that makes sense. So this is what when I think that, when I'm saying this is the quality of Mercury right now, is you're seeing the voices of the people. They're starting to get this now, and they're starting to pay attention and say, wait a second, that's what it means? Okay, because people don't follow this all the time, but they're starting to say that, okay, so that's what we're talking about. Yes, of course we need to have them come and say this stuff. No, it's not right that they're just obstructing and blocking everything. No, we need to hear the people who said this stuff come and say it. And the voices will get louder. And I think, so notice this in your life, how you're noticing other people who aren't being honest or telling the truth or have bad information. That's the Mercury and Gemini part. The Mercury and Gemini part is, okay, now I'm seeing what they're talking about. I get it. I get what all the confusing communication is about. This is all they need to do? Yeah, well, if the president's innocent, then these people should come and say it. We'll see when we get all of this facts out in the public. Again, right now, it's this K2 Saturn and Sagittarius. The other end, oh, I believe this, I believe that, I believe is innocent no matter what. I believe Mueller was this, or I believe all these beliefs. Opposite that is all the information coming out, the facts that are going to penetrate that. So it's going to happen. With this eclipse season in Gemini, of course it's going to happen. All right, guys. So that's where I'm going to leave it, and I'm glad that people came, and hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed this broadcast, and tell some people about it. Share it on your social media and other places. And thanks for watching and